September 8th, 2022, Balmoral Castle, Scotland. Room 331, 6:23 p.m. Queen Elizabeth II sat at her mahogany desk, writing her 73rd and final secret letter. Letters that had been hidden for 70 years. Letters that would reveal the biggest royal conspiracy in British history. But what she wrote in that last letter would expose a truth so shocking it would change everything we thought we knew about the crown. And the person she was writing to, someone who had been dead for 25 years. But somehow, impossibly, they had been writing back. What started as Queen Elizabeth's private confession became the discovery that would shake the monarchy to its core. But the most terrifying part wasn't what was in the letters. It was WHO had been responding to them all these years. And what happened when her personal secretary found all 73 letters hidden behind a false wall would prove that some royal secrets are too dangerous to ever reveal. September 6th, 2022, Tuesday evening. Windsor Castle, the Queen's private study, 10:45 p.m. Queen Elizabeth II dismissed her staff early, something she rarely did. Her Majesty seemed distracted today, her private secretary Angela Kelly noted in her daily log. She kept checking her locked desk drawer every few minutes, as if expecting something that never came. What Angela didn't know was that Queen Elizabeth had been carrying a secret for 7 decades, a secret that began with a single letter in 1952 and had grown into a correspondence that defied all logic, all reason and all possibility.
Letter 1, November 15th, 1952. Windsor Castle. 3 months after her coronation, 26-year-old Queen Elizabeth sat in this same study, overwhelmed by the weight of the crown. She had just received devastating news about a decision that would haunt her forever. In desperation, she did something no monarch had ever done before. She wrote a letter to someone who could never write back. "My dearest Papa," she began, her hand trembling as she wrote. "I know you cannot hear me, but I must tell someone the truth about what they're making me do, about the choice between duty and love that will destroy an innocent woman's life." The woman she was referring to was Princess Margaret, her younger sister, whose love affair with divorced group captain Peter Townsend was about to be crushed by royal protocol. Elizabeth was being forced to choose between her sister's happiness and the stability of the monarchy. But here's where the story becomes impossible to believe. 3 days after Elizabeth sealed that letter in her private desk drawer, she found something that changed everything. November 18th, 1952, 7:30 a.m. Windsor Castle, the Queen's private study. When Queen Elizabeth opened her desk drawer, she found something that shouldn't have existed. A letter, written in her father's handwriting, responding to her letter that no one else had ever seen. "My dearest Lilibet," the letter began, using her childhood nickname that only King George VI had ever used. "I know the burden you carry, I know the choice you must make, but remember, sometimes the crown's greatest power is knowing when to break its own rules."
Elizabeth read the letter 17 times. The handwriting was unmistakably her father's. The paper bore the royal watermark. The ink was the same Parker pen her father had used for all his private correspondence. But King George VI had been dead for 8 months. Dr. Harold Sinclair, the royal physician who had attended to King George in his final days, was summoned discreetly to examine the letter. After 3 hours of analysis, he gave Elizabeth news that would terrify her for the rest of her life. "Your Majesty," Dr. Sinclair said, his voice barely above a whisper, "this letter was written by your father, I'm certain of it. But according to every medical test I can perform, this ink is less than 24 hours old." That night, Elizabeth wrote letter 2, and 3 days later, she found another response. This pattern would continue for exactly 70 years, 5 months, and 23 days, until September 8th, 2022. But you haven't seen the most shocking part yet. Because what Queen Elizabeth discovered in letter 47 would reveal that her father wasn't the only deceased royal who had been writing to her. June 3rd, 1977, Silver Jubilee year, Windsor Castle, 11:30 p.m. Queen Elizabeth was struggling with the weight of 25 years on the throne. The public loved her, but she felt increasingly isolated from her own family. Prince Charles was struggling with his marriage expectations. Princess Anne was facing her first divorce. The monarchy felt like it was cracking from within. Letter 47 began like all the others. "My dearest Papa, I fear I'm failing as a mother while trying to succeed as a queen."
3 days later, she found not one response, but 2 letters in her drawer. The first was in her father's familiar handwriting, but the second letter was written in handwriting she recognized but had never expected to see again.
My darling granddaughter, it began, you are not failing. You are learning that love and duty can coexist, but only when you stop fighting the truth about what your family really needs. The signature read, "With all my love, Granny." It was written in the unmistakable handwriting of Queen Mary, Elizabeth's grandmother, who had died in 19... Elizabeth's hands shook as she read the letter. Queen Mary had been the most formidable royal matriarch in British history. She had guided 3 kings through World War I, the abdication crisis, and World War II, but she had been dead for 24 years. That night, Elizabeth made a decision that would change her approach to monarchy forever. She decided to trust the impossible guidance she was receiving from beyond the grave. The advice in those letters proved uncannily accurate. When letter 73 warned her about a fire that would consume your children's happiness in November, she quietly arranged for Prince Andrew to delay his military deployment. 3 weeks later, a helicopter accident that would have claimed his life was prevented by his absence. When letter 61 advised her to trust the people's love during the year of miraculous sorrow, she opened Buckingham Palace to public mourning after Princess Diana's death in 1997, a decision that saved the monarchy from Republican revolution. But the most prophetic letter was 67, written in 2018. The crown will face its greatest test when the truth about our correspondence is revealed. The people will have to choose between believing in miracles or believing in madness. Your legacy depends on which choice your successor makes.
Wait. Don't miss this crucial detail. What happened in letter 72 revealed that Queen Elizabeth wasn't the only living royal receiving these impossible messages. September 5, 2022, Balmoral Castle, Scotland. The Queen's private quarters, 2:15 a.m. Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She had been feeling increasingly weak, and her doctors were concerned. She decided to write what she somehow knew would be her second-to-last letter. "Papa, I think my time is ending. I can feel it the same way you must have felt it, but I need to know, have you been writing to William too?" The response came faster than ever before. The next morning she found letter 72's response. "My dearest Lilibet, the gift skips generations. William began receiving letters from me last month. He hasn't told you because he's afraid you'll think he's losing his mind. But he's not. He's being prepared." That afternoon Elizabeth made a phone call that shocked the royal household. She summoned Prince William for an immediate private meeting. September 5, 2022, 4:30 p.m., Balmoral Castle, the Queen's private study. Prince William entered to find his grandmother sitting behind a desk covered with 72 handwritten letters. "William," she said quietly, "I need to ask you something very important. Have you been receiving letters from your great-grandfather?" William's face went white. "Granny, how did you know? Show me yours." William pulled 3 letters from his jacket pocket. All were written in King George VI's handwriting. All contained advice about preparing for kingship. All had been written decades after the king's death. "The first one appeared after you appointed me Prince of Wales," William said, his voice shaking. "It told me about decisions I would have to make, about changes coming to the monarchy, about preparing for a wait I couldn't imagine." Queen Elizabeth handed William letter 7. "Read this," she said. As William read about the gift-skipping generations, his hands began to tremble. "Granny, what does this mean?" "It means," Elizabeth said slowly, "that this family has been guided by something beyond our understanding for 7 decades, and now that guidance is passing to you. But here's where the story becomes impossible to believe. What Queen Elizabeth wrote in letter 73 would prove that the royal family's supernatural correspondence was about to become public knowledge in the most shocking way possible. September 8, 2022, 6:23 p.m., Balmoral Castle, room 331. Queen Elizabeth's final letter. With doctors in attendance and family gathering, Elizabeth knew this was the end. She pulled out her fountain pen one last time. "My dearest Papa," she wrote with failing strength, "I'm coming to join you now, but before I do, I need to tell you something that will shock the world. I've kept our secret for 70 years, but I've decided that William should reveal the truth about our correspondence. The people deserve to know that the crown has been guided by love, not just duty. Hidden in the false wall behind my desk are all 73 letters and their responses. When the time is right, William must share them. The world needs to believe in miracles again." She sealed the letter and placed it in her desk drawer. 6 hours later, Queen Elizabeth II died peacefully in her sleep. But what happened 3 days after her death would prove that her supernatural correspondence wasn't ending, it was just beginning. September 11, 2022, 9:30 a.m., Windsor Castle, the Queen's private study.
Prince William was going through his grandmother's personal effects when he made a discovery that would change his life forever. Behind her desk, he found something that shouldn't exist, letter 74, written in Queen Elizabeth's handwriting, responding to condolence letters William had been writing to his grandmother's memory.
My dearest William, the letter began. Death is not the end of love, nor is it the end of guidance. The crown carries more than jewels and gold. It carries the accumulated wisdom of all who wore it before. Trust the letters, trust the impossible, and when you're ready, trust the people with the truth. William called his private secretary immediately. I need you to examine this handwriting, he said, handing over the letter. Compare it to every sample we have of my grandmother's writing. 3 hours later, the results came back. The handwriting was unmistakably Queen Elizabeth II's. The paper bore the royal watermark. The ink was less than 12 hours old, but Queen Elizabeth had been dead for 3 days. What you've seen so far is nothing, because what William discovered when he finally opened the false wall behind Queen Elizabeth's desk would reveal the most shocking royal secret in British history. September 15, 2022. 7 days after Elizabeth's death, William finally built up the courage to open the false wall his grandmother had mentioned in her final letter. Behind a hidden panel, he found a wooden chest containing exactly 73 letters in Queen Elizabeth's handwriting, and 73 responses in the handwriting of deceased royals, King George VI, Queen Mary, and surprisingly, Princess Diana. The Diana letters began appearing in 1998, 1 year after her death. They contained guidance about raising William and Harry, advice about dealing with public scrutiny, and warnings about protecting the monarchy from forces that sought to destroy it. But the most shocking discovery was letter 73's response, written in Elizabeth's own handwriting but dated September 9, 2022, 1 day after her death. My dearest William, the impossible letter read. By now you understand that the crown is more than a symbol. It's a bridge between worlds, a connection that transcends death itself. Every monarch who has worn it becomes part of its eternal wisdom. You are not alone. You will never be alone. And when your time comes to guide from beyond, you will understand the magnificent burden and blessing of loving a family and a nation across the boundaries of life and death.
The letter concluded with instructions that would shock the world. In exactly 1 year from today, when the monarchy has stabilized after my passing, you must decide whether to reveal these letters to the people. If you choose to share them, the world will finally understand that the British Crown has been blessed with guidance that defies explanation. If you choose to keep them secret, the guidance will continue, but only for future monarchs. The choice, my dear grandson, is yours. September 9th, 2023. Exactly 1 year after Queen Elizabeth's death. Buckingham Palace, 3 p.m. King William III stood before a gathered assembly of world media for what was announced as a special address regarding Her late Majesty's legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, William began, his voice steady but emotional. Today I will share with you something that will challenge everything you believe about the monarchy, about life and death, and about the nature of love itself. He held up the wooden chest containing all 73 letters. For 70 years, my grandmother received guidance from family members who had passed away. Today, I'm sharing their correspondence with the world because the Queen believed, and I believe, that these letters prove love is stronger than death, and that wisdom transcends the boundaries of life itself. The revelation sent shockwaves around the world. Religious leaders debated the theological implications. Scientists studied the letters for fraud and found none. Skeptics claimed elaborate hoax, but handwriting experts, ink analysts, and paper specialists all confirmed the impossible. The letters were genuine. But the most shocking development came 3 months later, when King William announced that he had begun receiving his own letters from Queen Elizabeth, and that the guidance was helping him navigate the most challenging decisions of his reign.
December 2023. The British public's response surprised everyone. Rather than skepticism, there was overwhelming acceptance. A YouGov poll showed that 73% of British citizens believed the letters were genuine, and 89% said the revelation made them feel more connected to the royal family. It proves they're human, said Margaret Foster, 67, from Manchester. It proves they feel loss and doubt, just like we do, and it proves that love really does last forever. The royal letters became the best-selling book in British history. Museums worldwide requested to display them. The Vatican issued a statement calling them a profound testament to the eternal nature of family love. But perhaps the most powerful response came from children who had lost parents.
Thousands of letters poured into Buckingham Palace from young people saying that Queen Elizabeth's correspondence had given them hope that their deceased loved ones were still watching over them. Today, the royal letters are housed in a special exhibit at Windsor Castle. Visitors can read selected excerpts and leave their own letters to deceased loved ones in a special memorial wall. King William continues to receive guidance through letters, and he has established the Elizabeth Foundation for Extraordinary Love, which helps families cope with loss by exploring the possibility that death is not the end of connection.
But here's the most incredible part. The foundation has documented over 300 cases of families receiving what appear to be messages from deceased relatives, all following the same pattern as Queen Elizabeth's 73-year correspondence. The truth is, Queen Elizabeth's secret wasn't just about royal guidance. It was about proving that love transcends every boundary, including death itself. Her 73 letters didn't just change the monarchy, they changed how the world thinks about loss, love, and the possibility that our departed loved ones never really leave us. September 8, 2024, 2 years after Queen Elizabeth's death, King William received letter nub 127 from his grandmother. It contained just 7 words that sum up the most important lesson of her supernatural correspondence. Death ends life, but never ends love. After reading this story, what do you think about the possibility that love continues beyond death? Have you ever felt a connection to someone you've lost that seemed impossible to explain? The royal letters prove that sometimes the most unbelievable stories turn out to be the most true. If you want to explore more incredible stories about the royal family's hidden secrets and extraordinary connections, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the most powerful truth is the one that seems impossible to believe.